everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Leah, for speaking. It's great to have you here. Leah Penrose is a senior people and culture leader, responsible for creating the people department at one of Canada's top 25 fastest growing companies 3 years in a row. Responsible for the full suite of people ops, she has seen it all, especially through 2020. This rapid growth and change required strong leadership, adaptability, resiliency, and empathy, and the courage to innovate. Leah holds the International Coaching Federation ACC level for her organizational and team coaching, receiving her training from UBC, Human Resources Management certification from SFU, Change Management certification from UBC, and is a CPHR candidate. Thank you for speaking today, Leah, and good luck with your presentation.
Thanks, Alex. I'm happy to be here with everyone today. I'm actually coming to you from Vancouver. So my name is Leah, and I use pronouns she, her, and hers. And as I mentioned, I'm coming from Vancouver. So I acknowledge that I live, learn, and work on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Coaching and creating connections and conversations is the foundation of my professional life and personal life. It's really what brought me to HR. I don't believe that I'm an expert, so I'm just going to be sharing my thoughts today and hope that you will engage in questions and comments in the chat with me so that we can all continue to learn and get through this times together. So, shifting tides of HR and leadership. What am I going to talk about? So 2020 has brought about a lot of changes, not only on every level of how we live, work, and learn, but also on how we show up at the workplace. And it's because people are afraid. It is an unprecedented time of global pandemic, global economic crisis, and a lot of underlying fear, which brings a lot of uneasiness to it. So what does all this change look like to me? It's waves. Waves bring change. I would like to be a surfer, gracefully, cowabunging on those waves instead of thrashing in the shore. And leadership, it's the shifting tides of it. Some of the old traditional paradigms of work are starting to leave, while new ways of showing up are starting to come in. And so what does that mean for us in work? So 2020 has been a year of reckoning, as I said, not only for me personally, but for everybody. The landscape of work changed overnight. And the saying, what got us here won't get us there, couldn't be more true. And I think everybody in this room can agree that we've seen a lot of change and we don't really know what that means. There's been a shift from the pre-COVID norms to the new normal. Some people don't want this. They want to go back to the way it was, to what they know. And for me, I want to continue with some of the positives that I've seen in the workplace through COVID-19. And that is what I'll be talking about today. I wish I could share my slides with you, but it's the one time that having a Mac isn't necessarily that much better, because if I share my slides with you, I can't actually see the chat or who's talking. So I apologize for that. So 2020, shift happens. Pun intended. Some of the shifts that we have seen so far this year are fully distributed workforces. Companies that weren't necessarily remote are now remote. Some have gone back, some haven't. Mental health and burnout is being acknowledged and is at the forefront of a lot of conversations in the office. Work and personal lives are completely blended. There's no more leave your personal lives at the door. Our kids are sitting next to us on Zoom calls. Our pets are barking or walking past our screens. There's no commute time to separate that any longer. DEI is at the forefront through Black Lives Matter, and companies are being asked to make a stance on what they believe and what they stand for. We've already seen that the HR role has started to shift over the years from a more strictly administrative role to more of a strategic partner for leadership. And I would argue that we've seen more of that shift this year. We are now more proactive, that Our employees don't hear from us just if they're getting fired or they need to fill out some paperwork. Policies and legislations have changed. If you were just in Stephanie's session, she spoke about some of them, about how benefits, policies, ESAs have changed to address the changing world of COVID-19. We've shifted to a more human, employee-centric decisions being made, considering what it means for our people than just a straight business. And there's a lot of unknown. We don't know what's next. We don't know if we can necessarily plan for the future. Strategic planning based on the way the world was doesn't really seem to fit any longer. And what did we leave behind or are still reckoning with today? Some old paradigms that I feel are showing up still are that trust needs to be earned. It's not given to employees. That this can show up in issues that how can new employees or younger employees be trusted to work from home when we can't supervise them, when we don't have eyes on them all the time? That productivity can only happen when we're at the office. That even if you're in your seat at the office, you're productive. Even if you may be searching and shopping on Amazon, that if you're at home and you're in your pajamas or slippers or your work mullet, a professional shirt on top, but pajamas on the bottom, there's no way that you can be productive. That culture can only exist within the building of brick and mortar. What about different locations of offices? How can we transition or translate our culture to people that are remote or in different places around the world? It doesn't work. That time in seats means you're productive, and that the more time you spend in that seat obviously means the more productive you are. So if you stick around till 8 p.m., you're productive, even if it means you've been doing nothing or slow to get your work done. Time in seat equals productivity. That face times gets you promotions. That out of sight, out of mind, that if you are not in front of the CEO or the head office and around all the other leaders, you're not going to be seen. You're not going to be able to get that promotion. What does that really say? Do you earn it, or is it just because you're in front of them? That you have to leave your personal life at the door. Employers do not care about, are not responsible for what is going on in your life. Leave it. When you're at work and you're there to do that. Anything else that I'm missing? What old traditional beliefs about work are still showing up there today? Feel free to throw it in the chat. Oh, okay. I'll continue on. So how did I shift? I felt that through this fear and uncertainty, I noticed my team was feeling really uneasy. They were anxious. Their energy was not where it was supposed to be pre-COVID when they were all in the office. A lot of shifts came and it affected our team. So I had one-on-ones with each team member. I set aside time, not just on my team, but the entire company. It was intentional. I didn't want to talk about how they were feeling with their performance, how they were meeting their KPIs, if they needed any learning and development training needs. I wanted to know how they were doing, how they were really doing, what was happening in their personal lives. Did they need anything? Was there anything that we needed to know about? Any resources or support that they needed to have given from us? Not everybody wanted to share. That's fine. But for those that it was, they needed it. They needed to know that there was somebody there that was going to listen. I redefined expectations with managers and provided them with tools and techniques on how to work with their team, how one-on-one should shift to not just focusing on, are you doing this? How is that going? What needs to be done next? But setting time aside to check in with them as a person. There is a whole, again, I keep coming back to it, but pandemic and fear. Are they going to lose their jobs? Are they going to lose their health, their family's health? What does this all look like to them? And that affects people. So how are you doing? How can I support you through this time? And I encourage them to double down on their touch points, not only with their individual team members, but as a group. And I know there's the Zoom burnout and fatigue, but people needed to feel connected. Mental health support and acknowledgement was shared, and I brought resources to front and center. But that wasn't enough. I saw people not going to it. So what did I do? I shared my own struggles. I was really vulnerable. I took a chance. I shared that I was struggling with anxiety and depression, that I was scared, that I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to act, that it was affecting my work. And as soon as I started sharing, others started to share. They came to me. They wanted to talk about it. Now, I'm not a counselor, but I listened and I directed them to where they needed to go. And it removed the fear and the stigma around not having to fear that they would lose their job on top of the possibility of already losing their job because of the economic situation. I doubled down on listening to the team. Again, you may question survey fatigue, but it was important. I'm not here to dictate what the team needed. I wanted to know what they needed from me, how I can support them around DEI initiatives, Black Lives Matter, through COVID and mental health support. What did they truly need from me, and how can I help get it to them? So I have Thought Exchange. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of this company, and I don't work with them, but I've used their product, and it is a great resource. So it's a type of way to survey your team by having one broad question asked. And your teammates can go in there and anonymously enter in their thoughts, questions, concerns about that topic. And then after they do that, your other teammates can anonymously rank your comment higher or lower, whether they agree or disagree on it. So leaders and team of all levels can contribute to this, and it creates a heat map. And so it really shows what is important and not important without truly being directed by like a Survey Monkey type survey. So Thought Exchange was really helpful for us. I took that information and I presented it and acted as an advocate on behalf of my team to the senior leaders who tended to hold some of these traditional work paradigms and beliefs that they had about how work should be. You know, with this results and data in hand, I can say that this no longer works for our team. We need to shift. We need to be able to show up and support our team in a different way, because what's happening isn't working. It's creating more fear. It's creating disengagement. How did we need to show up, and how can we continue to show up going forward if this new normal, this new way of working resonates with you? Vulnerability. You cannot expect others to be vulnerable if you don't act it and show up as a vulnerable person yourself. And vulnerability means being able to admit your mistakes. If we cannot admit our mistakes or admit that we don't know what is next or what decision to make, sorry, excuse me, how can we expect others to? And I don't know about you, but I had no idea what to do during COVID-19. I don't think anybody really did, but there are some people out there saying that they definitely knew what to do. And I think when we admit that we don't know, we can listen to other people. We can listen to people from all levels. And there are some brilliant, brilliant students that are coming out from university that are learning the newest trends and techniques. Because again, I repeat, what got us here isn't going to get us there. That maybe we need to listen to some different voices. Think about what others may need and want during this time. Crowdsource. That we don't need to know everything to still be a leader. And it's okay to be our authentic self. I tried so long to fit in and be who I thought I needed to be, this super knowledgeable, closed off professional person that really focused on administrative HR needs. That's not necessarily me. I need to be able to be my goofy self that is, I don't know. I've been called once a little woo woo. Again, I'm from Vancouver, so we can play with our yoga and crystals over here. But I'm people centric. And when I showed up as my authentic self and vulnerable self, others followed suit and they felt like they could belong and share their ideas more, which leads to psychological safety and belonging for everyone, not just a select few people. So, psychological safety means that you're able to speak up and feel safe to say what is on your mind and be who you are without fear of repercussion or feeling like you're going to be punished. And so, I know leaders say, like, I'm open to feedback, but then they shut you down if you do provide them feedback. Or I'm open to hear people's voices and different ways of thinking, but then they never actually call on you or they don't consider it fully. So that doesn't create a truly psychologically safe place and it doesn't lead to innovation. So, how can we allow people when they're in their homes with cat posters behind them to feel like they can be themselves, and taking it further to share that they are part of the LGBTQ community or that they're having issues about mental health and addiction or that Black Lives Matter really is affecting them. That is true psychological safety and belonging, and admitting that and fostering that type of culture is what I believe is needed. And DEI is no longer a nice to have or a checkbox. We need to shift our thinking and our bias around what that means. It is a necessity for innovation and for just being human. So that's another old thought that if you focus on DEI, it means that you're hiring people just because they're of a certain race. That's not it. Are we ready to advance yet for video resumes? I don't think so. Technology-wise, yes. But have we done enough work as HR people leaders and senior leaders from other departments to really remove our bias around abilities, around race, around anything that is covered by the human rights to say that we get it and that we understand it and that we believe in it and we're going to stand for it? We need to do a lot more. And that equity and equality are not the same thing. That we don't and shouldn't really be aiming for equality. We're aiming for equity in the sense of flexibility, that people should be allowed to work where they need to work. I'm not saying that everyone should be forced to work remote, that that's the way of the future, or that everybody needs to go back to the office because that's where cultures thrive and productivity happens. But that they can choose where they want to work. Maybe they're introverted, maybe they're extroverted, maybe they don't have the best home life because this is their first job and they're struggling to make payments on rent, but that they can work where they need to work and what works best for them. And that maybe they're a morning person or an evening person, and maybe they have a kid home during this pandemic and they're homeschooling and they can't quit because they need a job. So they can work different hours, shifting to asynchronous work, especially for national and global companies. It's being done. As long as you focus on outcomes instead of time and seats, this is really great. It can happen. But how? We need to be empathetic. We need to understand that people do have mental health problems and not just depression and anxiety, but addiction. People have relapsed. Do you have policies around substance abuse during work? Maybe for the office, but what about remote work? Right? How are you going to support them to get better, to be healthy, to stay part of your team? These are all things that, we haven't really thought about before, and we need to really think about this. And I don't have the answers. It's going to need to work for each company, but it needs to be discussed and it needs to not be shamed, because if we want to get them help, they need to be able to come to us. We need to acknowledge that kids and pets are still going to come to us, and that they need to not fear that they need to be hidden under the table or anything. My kid came up and asked me to take him to the bathroom when I was talking to my CEO. We laughed about it. We moved on. I didn't fear that I was going to get fired because of it. But even in the super professional, large corporations, can we go further? Okay, if this happens, that it doesn't make them less than or not a great employee if that happens. Can we set times to touch base with our team intentionally, not drop in and just phone them to make sure that they're at their desk? They're at home. Maybe they're eating lunch. Maybe they're in the bathroom. And the fear that can come up if they saw a missed call from their manager. Let's think about them, not just about us. Let's give trust, not make them earn it. And we need to lead by example. We need to shut off at the end of long hours trying to prove that we're doing more work than them, that we're more important, that we need to check emails on the weekend and evenings, that my kid has to be hidden, that my office is clean, and that I'm always in a suit. You're at home. Wear the work mullet. Show your kid every once in a while, have a bit of a mess, be human, because we're human, and that doesn't stop during work hours. I actually had to walk away from my job this year at the end of September because life got to be too much for me. I lost some loved ones, and I was dealing with mental health for myself and for another loved one with addiction, and that did not stop between 8 and 5. It stayed with me. And so how can we show up for our team to help them get through that so they don't have to leave the workforce, so that they can feel supported and be productive, engaged employees? So for me, I feel that there's benefits to this new norm. I feel that it creates a resiliency within ourselves, our teammates, and our teams in the company. I feel that it creates independence. We treat people like adults and they'll flourish. Autonomy is the number one thing that people strive for and need in their lives. Diversity of thought leads to innovation. And again, what got us here won't get us there. It's wavy right now. There's shifts happening left, right, and center. And how has our company shifted through this time? So we need to innovate. What is this world going to be like in a few years? We need true diversity of thought in people. Authenticity. I think being able to be myself is like this huge weight off my shoulders, that I no longer have to spend unnecessary energy on trying to hide who I am and be something that I'm not. And the amount of value that I bring to my team and the company because of that is amazing. The amount of people that have reached out to me and connected with me and asked for collaborations during this time has increased tenfold, because I'm resonating with people for a reason, because I'm being my authentic self. Intentional connections. So talking about the weather around the water cooler with people that you just have to be friendly with, is that really the great culture? Or is reaching out to the people that you really want to talk about and having deep conversations for a coffee chat better? It's up to you. It's what you want to do. I just think that there are more benefits to this. Less commute time, better for your mental health, your physical health, and the environment. You're able to produce better work because you're working with how you work best, where, when, why. You don't feel pressure to be in your seat all the time. So you're focused on outcomes and being able to produce that work in a way that works for you. We're just overall better humans when we focus on being empathetic and vulnerable and our true selves. We can look at DEI, we can look at productivity and engagement and our kids and how we show up for them and just how we live. To me, that's exciting. It's a forced evolution from 1940s. work and unions and the hours and the clocking in and the clocking out and the commuting and everything, that took a big toll. But it was needed. Is that needed today? I don't think so. But again, it's up to you to decide. There's better policies, sick time for people, an understanding that there's family care and that you need to go through life and life happens and it's okay. So let's address that. Let's support you through it so that we don't have to get people out of the workforce, that they can stay working and still feel supported during this because it's all connected. And overall, it is an engaged, valued employees and workforce, because when people are listened to and heard and truly seen, they're more productive, they're engaged, and our engagement is still far too low. We need to get people being who they are and working in how they need to work. So that's the wave that I want to surf. That's the shift in the tides that I want to see. And if you want to join me on this, start taking little steps. So the resources that I mentioned, and I'll share these in the chat, are Thought Exchange is the polling company, and then Checking In is an app that I so firmly believe in. So it's about all mental and emotional well-being, but it goes further than like a Headspace or a Calm. It's really quick, and it allows you to monitor your own emotional well-being and increase your emotional intelligence through it. But you can also set it up for your company so that you can monitor the dashboard of how your team is doing, which could not be more important today, with mental health being brought in as part of the occupational health and safety with a distributed workforce. And so those are the two resources that I so strongly suggest for any team out there to use. And again, I get nothing for this. This is just what I believe in, and I think would be helpful for people. And that is the end of my talk. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I would love to hear questions and comments.